No one in the sleepy town of Silver Creek had ever seen anything like it. "There's a woman on that stagecoach, Sheriff," the deputy whispered urgently, tugging his hat lower as though to hide his astonishment. Sheriff Cole Harrison leaned casually against the porch railing, his blue eyes narrowing slightly against the glaring sun. A woman traveling alone was rare enough in these parts, but a woman stepping down from a dusty stagecoach dressed in silk and velvet, well, that was downright unthinkable. He watched as she gracefully descended, a lace-gloved hand delicately holding the edge of her skirts, her deep emerald gown shimmering under the relentless heat. Dark curls peeked out from beneath her bonnet, framing a face that immediately caught his breath, soft, strikingly beautiful, yet marked by a hint of stubborn defiance. "Who's she?" Cole murmured to no one in particular, curiosity already taking hold. "Miss Annabelle Hart," a gruff voice responded beside him. The sheriff turned to see Jed Dawson, the cantankerous old stage driver, chewing thoughtfully on his tobacco. "She's from Boston. Came with nothing but a carpet bag and a whole heap of trouble following behind, I reckon." "Trouble?" Jed nodded slowly. "Ain't natural for a fine city lady to turn up in Silver Creek, unless she's running from something or someone." Cole's jaw tightened as he straightened his posture. Trouble was something he didn't need, but something he was intimately familiar with. He'd spent years trying to keep this town safe, peaceful, and far away from the shadows of his past. Yet the moment Annabelle Hart raised her gaze and her emerald eyes locked onto his, Cole knew trouble had already arrived, and she was far more dangerous than any outlaw he'd ever faced. He approached her slowly, tipping his hat politely. "Miss Hart, welcome to Silver Creek. I'm Sheriff Harrison. Do you have accommodations arranged, or might I offer assistance?" Annabelle's green eyes assessed him carefully, her expression guarded. "Sheriff Harrison, thank you for your concern. I assure you, I've arranged lodging at Mrs. Palmer's boarding house." Her voice was smooth and educated, with a gentle lilt that betrayed her Eastern upbringing. Cole studied her carefully, noting the careful way she held herself, the tension barely masked beneath her elegant demeanor. "If I may, Miss Hart," Cole offered, lowering his voice just enough to avoid drawing the attention of townsfolk already murmuring their curiosity. "Silver Creek isn't Boston. Life here can be harsh and unpredictable. If there's something—" "Sheriff," she interrupted gently but firmly, lifting her chin just slightly, a small act of defiance he found oddly endearing, catching in her hair, turning dark curls into molten silk. "Mighty stubborn," Jed muttered, spitting into the dirt. "Trouble, mark my words." "I reckon you're right," Cole agreed quietly, eyes still fixed on Annabelle's retreating figure, curiosity burning deeper than he'd ever expected. He turned back toward his office, his thoughts swirling. Annabelle Hart had come to Silver Creek carrying secrets, her past hidden beneath layers of silk and bravado. He knew without question her presence would disrupt the town and his carefully ordered life. Yet as he stepped onto the porch of his sheriff's office, an unfamiliar feeling sparked within him, a strange yearning, a desire to unravel the mystery she presented, even knowing it would likely cost him dearly. Little did Cole know, the quiet, predictable rhythm of his life had just ended, replaced by the beat of destiny, as irresistible as it was dangerous. Annabelle Hart stood at the window of her modest room in Mrs. Palmer's boarding house, gazing out into the fading twilight. Silver Creek was smaller than she'd imagined, a patchwork of wooden buildings scattered against the backdrop of the endless prairie, tinged orange and gold by the setting sun. She sighed softly, fingers tracing the worn edge of the lace curtains. Coming here had been an impulsive decision, one driven by desperation. She closed her eyes briefly, memories of Boston creeping in uninvited. The sound of laughter in elegant drawing rooms, the whispered scandal, the cold gaze of her father. Most vividly, she remembered William, with his charming smile and deceptive promises, the man who had turned her trust into betrayal. A quiet knock startled her from her reverie. She straightened her shoulders, smoothing the invisible wrinkles from her dress, and opened the door cautiously. "Miss Hart," Mrs. Palmer said warmly, holding a tray of tea and biscuits, her plump cheeks flushed from climbing the stairs. "Thought you might need something after your journey." "Thank you, Mrs. Palmer," Annabel replied with genuine gratitude, stepping aside to let the kind woman enter. "If you need anything else, just holler," Mrs. Palmer said gently, placing the tray on the small table. She hesitated a moment before adding, "Sheriff Harrison's a good man, you know. He may seem stern, but there's kindness beneath it." Annabel smiled politely, masking the flicker of unease at the mention of the sheriff. "I'm sure he's quite capable." Left alone again, Annabel sank into the wooden chair and sipped her tea, savoring the warmth that spread comfortingly through her chest. Sheriff Harrison unsettled her. His blue eyes had pierced right through her carefully constructed facade, leaving her feeling exposed and vulnerable. The following morning, Silver Creek was bustling. Annabel walked along the wooden sidewalks, noting curious gazes and whispered speculation that followed her essentials. As she browsed the shelves, the bell above the door chimed softly, and she felt the air shift slightly. Turning, she found Sheriff Harrison standing there, his tall frame filling the doorway. "Miss Hart," he greeted, tipping his hat politely. "Sheriff," she returned coolly, attempting to conceal the sudden, nervous flutter in her chest. His mere presence seemed to command attention, yet there was something gentle beneath his rugged exterior that intrigued her. "I hope you're settling in comfortably," he said, his tone polite, yet guarded. "Silver Creek can take some getting used to." "Indeed," she replied evenly, studying his expression, "though I am capable of adjusting." His mouth twitched into the barest hint of a smile, and her heart quickened inexplicably. "I don't doubt that, Miss Hart. But should you ever require assistance—" "Sheriff Harrison," she interrupted softly, stepping closer so that only he could hear, her eyes meeting his directly. "I came here to escape my past, not invited along." Cole's blue eyes narrowed thoughtfully, and he inclined his head slightly. "We all have shadows we're running from, Miss Hart. The trick is knowing when to stop running." She swallowed, momentarily speechless, the intensity of his gaze unraveling her carefully maintained composure. She broke eye contact, suddenly fascinated by the items on the shelf beside her. "I'll keep that in mind." Before either could say another word, the bell chimed again, and a young boy rushed into the store, breathless and wide-eyed. "Sheriff, there's trouble at the saloon. It's Jake Barnes. He's back in town." Cole stiffened, his jaw tightening instantly, shadows clouding his expression. Without a word, he turned swiftly and exited, leaving Annabel clutching her basket, a swirl of unanswered questions filling her mind. Who was Jake Barnes? And what secrets haunted Sheriff Cole Harrison? Annabel's curiosity grew deeper, entwined with something she could not yet name. A longing, perhaps, or simply a dangerous fascination with a man who clearly had as many hidden scars as she did. Annabel stepped outside, watching Cole's determined stride toward the saloon, realizing with a jolt that the peace she'd hoped to find here might be nothing but an illusion, and that she was already caught in the tangled web of Silver Creek's hidden past. The saloon doors swung violently inward, creaking loudly as Sheriff Cole Harrison stepped inside. All conversations halted abruptly, every eye turning toward him. The air crackled with tension. At the far end of the room, Jake Barnes lounged insolently against the bar, a dangerous smirk twisting his lips. "Well, if it ain't Sheriff Harrison," lines that years of bitterness and outlaw life had etched into his features. "I thought it was high time you and me settled an old score." "There's nothing left to settle," Cole said firmly, aware of every wary gaze fixed on them. He knew Jake Barnes well. Too well. Their shared past was filled with betrayal and violence, a history Cole had long tried to bury. "Maybe you think so," Jake sneered, "but I reckon you owe me. You took something from me, Cole, something I aim to take back." The veiled threat hung heavily in the silence, the crowd shifting nervously. Before Cole could respond, the doors opened again, softly this time. Annabelle Hart stepped hesitantly into the tense atmosphere, her presence immediately noted by all. "Miss Hart," Cole said sharply, his voice edged with urgency, "this is no place for—" "I apologize for the intrusion," Annabelle interjected swiftly, her gaze calm but determined. "But Mrs. Palmer said young Tommy is missing. He was last seen near the creek." The news startled Cole momentarily, drawing his attention away from Jake. The boy was no more than 8 years old and was known for wandering. Jake's smirk deepened, sensing an opportunity. "Trouble always finds a way, don't it, Cole? Guess you got yourself a choice to make." Cole shot Jake a cold, warning glare. "This isn't over." Turning swiftly, Cole brushed past Annabelle, pausing just briefly. "Stay here, Miss Hart. I'll handle this." "I want to help," she insisted softly, stepping closer, her voice low and determined. "Please." He hesitated only briefly, seeing the earnest sincerity in her emerald eyes. With a resigned nod, he relented. "Fine, but stay close." Together, they hurried toward the creek, the sun now dipping low behind the distant hills, casting long, foreboding shadows. The sound of flowing water grew louder as they reached the creek's edge. "Tommy!" Cole called out, his voice echoing through the stillness. Annabelle joined in, her voice clear but filled with worry. "Tommy, can you hear us?" A faint cry reached them, barely audible above the babbling brook. Cole moved swiftly toward it, Annabelle close behind. They found Tommy clinging desperately to a branch hanging over the swiftly flowing water, terror etched into his youthful face. Without hesitation, Cole waded into the creek, bracing against the powerful current. "Hold on, Tommy, I'm coming!" Annabelle watched breathlessly as Cole reached for the boy, his powerful arms pulling Tommy safely into his grasp. Relief flooded her heart as Cole carried the trembling child back to shore, soaked and exhausted, but alive. Sound of footsteps broke their moment. They turned to see Jake Barnes watching from a distance, his expression unreadable. He tipped his hat mockingly before disappearing into the shadows. Cole felt the weight of unresolved danger pressing heavily upon him. Yet as he watched Annabelle comfort young Tommy, a warmth stirred in his heart, a protective instinct stronger than any he'd ever known. He realized then, with startling clarity, that whatever danger lay ahead, whatever shadows threatened to consume him, he would face them head-on, not only for Silver Creek, but for the woman who had unknowingly stolen his heart. Days passed, and Silver Creek slowly settled into a wary peace. But beneath the calm, Cole felt the storm brewing. Jake Barnes' threats still haunted him, yet strangely, his worries centered more on Annabelle than himself. He found himself drawn to her presence, to her quiet strength and undeniable grace. Annabelle, too, had found herself inexplicably pulled toward the sheriff, her cautious heart thawing more each day. She saw beyond Cole's stern exterior, recognizing the gentle soul burdened by past mistakes. Their brief moments shared grew deeper, whispered conversations exchanged under starlit skies, forging an undeniable bond. One evening, the town gathered for the annual harvest celebration, lanterns casting warm glows around the town square. Music drifted through the night air, laughter and chatter echoing softly. Annabelle stood at the edge of the festivities, watching quietly, her heart feeling unexpectedly full, yet anxious. Cole approached her quietly, his presence comforting. "Miss Hart," he began softly, his voice a warm caress. "May I have this dance?" Annabelle hesitated briefly, her heart fluttering. But the earnest look in his eyes erased any doubts. "Of course, Sheriff Harrison." His hand gently took hers, guiding her into the circle of dancers. They moved gracefully together, the world fading until only they existed, hearts beating in tandem. Annabelle felt safe, cared for, and a warmth she hadn't known possible bloomed within her chest. As the dance ended, Cole leaned close, whispering, "Annabelle, there's something I need you to know. My past—" Before he could finish, a shout cut through the festivities, shattering their moment. Jake Barnes stood at the edge of the square, gun drawn, eyes wild with vengeance. "Time to finish what we started, Cole." Instinctively, Cole stepped in front of Annabelle, shielding her. "Jake, think carefully. It doesn't have to end this way." Jake sneered bitterly. "It's the only way it can end. You took everything from me." The crowd scattered in panic as Jake's finger tightened on the trigger. But before he could fire, "Forgiveness can." Jake hesitated, her words piercing through his rage. His gun wavered slightly. Cole gently moved beside Annabelle, standing shoulder to shoulder. "Jake, she's right. We've both suffered enough." Slowly, Jake lowered his weapon, the anger draining from his eyes, replaced by a deep sadness. "Maybe you're right," he muttered hoarsely, turning away, defeated yet somehow lighter. As Jake disappeared into the darkness, Cole turned toward Annabelle, awe and gratitude in his gaze. "You saved us," she smiled softly, stepping closer. "You saved me first." He cupped her face gently, their breaths mingling in the cool evening air. "I don't know what fate brought you here, Annabelle Hart, but I'm grateful every day that it did." "Perhaps it was destiny," she whispered, eyes shining with tears of joy. "Then thank God for destiny," Cole murmured, finally closing the distance between them, their lips meeting in a tender kiss, sealing their hearts forever. Silver Creek had witnessed many stories, but none as enduring as the love forged between Sheriff Cole Harrison and Annabelle Hart. A love that had faced trials and emerged stronger, promising a future filled with hope, healing, and the lasting embrace of redemption.